Well, hello there, and welcome to The View from Abroad, where we unpack a newspaper column that I wrote almost 30 years ago when I was living and working and raising a family in Hong Kong. I'm Teresa Norton, and it's really nice to have you with us. You know, we unpack these things because 30 years is a long time, and lots change. I've changed, and the world has changed, and it's kind of fun to see what still feels relevant and what doesn't feel so much that way. Now, I met today's guest when we were both facilitating sessions in a leadership lab for the Banff Center in Alberta, Canada. And I had the pleasure of bringing Linda Naiman out to Hong Kong to run a workshop for some of my corporate clients on her very interesting approach using visual art for incorporating, in that particular workshop, left and right brain thinking to get a lot of innovative ideas out. It was great. Anyway, Linda's the founder of Creativity at Work and has co-authored Orchestrating Collaboration at Work, which was one of the very first books to explore how arts can be transformative for teams and in leadership. So we're going to hear more about that during the break. But first, let's get started with that column that Linda chose, written back in 1995. The Naked Truth About Facing 40. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts, but I think the realization that a woman's life doesn't stop at 39 may be the most significant accomplishment of the women's movement. Yesterday, I had lunch with a self-employed, savvy single mother. We were talking about computers, and I mentioned that I use my 8 kabillion Mega Munch Apple as a typewriter and a filing cabinet. I can't get myself to settle down with a cup of hot cocoa and an instruction manual, and so I remain a dodo bird in the evolutionary world of high technology. Someday I'll get one of those computer guys to come over and show me how to work the rest of the programs. She leaned over her Caesar salad and said to me, 40. 40 what? You'll read that manual when you're 40. I decided when I turned 40 that I was not going to rely on other people to figure out the things I know I can sort out for myself. She popped a crouton into her mouth. 40. 40, she confirmed. I got home and found 2 letters from girlfriends overseas. One has just decided that her gift to herself for her 40th birthday is going to be a great body. She's got about a year to get into shape, and she's joined a gym and started a diet. The other just turned 40 and has decided to celebrate her 40th by doing a complete career rethink. Okay, enough with 40 already. I put down the letter and picked up this month's issue of Playboy. I was distracted from the interview with actor Tim Robbins by a layout entitled Fabulous at 40. Oh, va-va-va-voom. Of course, there's a bit of airbrush applied here and there and a daub of Vaseline smeared sparingly over the camera lens, but all those pert upturned 19-year-olds get help from the art department, too. My point, before the hardcore feminists get all upset about softcore porn, is not whether women should allow their pert upturns to be ogled by fellas, or whether women have been suckered by the fashion industry into believing that the only good body is a svelte body. The point is that individuals are saying, I don't buy into the idea that the only good body is a young body. I don't believe that I can't change my life just because I'm halfway through it. Middle age. The Middle Ages. Renaissance. Far out. Of course, men have to face 42, middle age, midlife crisis, the dark ages. Bummer, dude. There's a wonderful exchange in the movie Moonstruck. Olympia Dukakis asks actor Danny Aiello why men chase younger women because her husband is having an affair. Because they fear death, is his answer. I found it interesting that none of the women I spoke to, heard from, or looked at naked mentioned anything about attracting men, young or old, as the reason for taking control, getting themselves fit, posing in their underpants. These sisters are doing it for themselves. Oh, all right. If you allow yourself to be photographed in nothing but a hard hat and a pair of workman's boots, you are most certainly going to attract the attention of men young and old. But those gals didn't pose for Playboy because they're afraid of death. They did it because they are exhilarated by the way they see themselves, and they are strutting their stuff now. Now that's liberation, gained not by burning wonder bras, but by seeing oneself as being on the brink of something terrific at 40. Now, you must excuse me now. I've got to find that Apple computer instruction manual. I've only got a year and a half left. Well, hello, Linda Naiman. It's very nice to see you.
And a pleasure to see you again, Teresa Norton. It's so great that we've stayed in touch all these years.
I know. And it has been all these years. I'm trying to think how many years it might have been. At least 10, 15?
Maybe we were 40 back then.
Well, golly. Isn't that hysterical that 40 seemed like such a milestone? Next year, I'll be 70.
Indeed.
You know, I mean, the whole thing about facing 40, what I like in rereading that column was that it was about not so much body shape as it was age. You know, that it wasn't talking about, oh my God, because there were columns where I was talking about that. Oh my God, I bend over to brush my hair upside down and whoa, don't ever have sex in that position, that kind of stuff. But this was not about, it wasn't about how my body had changed. It was about this idea that these ladies, they were just celebrating it. And they were 40. I mean, why not celebrate at 40, right? I had a meal with a friend a couple of weeks ago, and this one gal who was at the dinner said, "Oh, I hate getting old." She was turning 60. "Oh, I hate this. I hate it." And I said, "What do you hate about it?" "I love getting older." And she looked at me like I was nuts. Do you love getting older, or what are there things about it that you love and you hate? Is it a love-hate relationship?
Yeah, probably. I mean, not so much now, but probably like in my 50s, I think were hard. I think my late 20s, I felt like I was getting older, like at 28. Like 28, like late 20s was hard now, but I just turned 70 this year. And so another milestone. And when I turned 70, I just went, yay, because I can be free. It's like, for me, freedom is really important. And so, yeah, so what I did, because, I like milestones. And so for this milestone, actually, my friend and I planned this 5 years ago. Like, we went hiking at Mount Baker for 3 days. And we said, this is fun. Let's walk the Camino. Right. Why don't we walk the Camino after this? And then we said, let's do it in 5 years when I'm 70 and you're 65. And she thought that was a great idea. And then then the 2 more people joined us. So we just walked the Camino in May, end of May, early June.
I know. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, we met on your turf, then you came to my turf in Hong Kong, and I was going to be able to meet you here in Portugal, but I was in California when you came out here to do that.
Yeah, bad timing.
You had a wonderful trip? What was it like?
Yeah, so what I wanted to do was use that as an opportunity to let go of everything that no longer serves me, mentally, emotionally, and so that I can step forward as my older, wiser, all-knowing self, to awaken or liberate maybe my inner sage, and so it took a lot of preparation to get to this place, because I did go through fear, like, oh my God, like every single medical thing that came up. Oh my God, am I going to be able to walk the Camino? Oh my God, what happens if I'm on the Camino and this happens? Or a lot of anxiety. And so, and then also just getting physically fit. So I had to get mentally fit and physically fit.
Can I
And
ask you a question?
yeah,
Can you share just a couple of the things that you wanted to drop?
let's say worrying, anxiety,
Mm.
um, also the ties that bind coming from my family, my mother, um, agreements, conscious or even unconscious. And my mother died in January.
Mm.
And and so that's also it sounds strange, but it's also a liberation.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted to be with, so that I can continue living my life being creative, productive, healthy,
Mm.
vibrant,
Mm.
independent, and
Linda,
until the day I drop dead. And then I thought, no, maybe not till the day I drop dead, about a month before. Dropping dead, like just like that, might be a bit abrupt. Like, give it a month to, prepare.
I don't know. I could be all about the just drop dead. I mean, I think getting hit by a lightning bolt. My mother used to say, "Your father and I are hoping that we're just going to choke to death in tandem on Mars bars watching Cheers." And then she said, "But I talked to Sister Nancy at church, and she said, with the nuts in a Snickers bar, you'll probably have a better chance of going together." So
That is hilarious.
I come from a long line of let's just, go. But yes, indeed. Well, listen, I want to ask you something or tell you something. When you were talking about this, I was imagining you walking along the Camino and kind of like Gretel in Hansel and Gretel, just dropping little stones as you went along, like
Oh,
just letting them go. You know, I think that's wonderful. I think
that's
that's a
interesting.
beautiful.
That's interesting you say that, because many people do have stones with them, and then they drop them at various um, altars along the way. And but I didn't do that. I didn't carry literal stones on the trip. I, but people do. It actually is part of the tradition.
Well, I know that is true because I have a dear friend of mine who passed away. And I know that people have taken stones with her name on them on that Camino walk because I'm in touch with other members of her family. So, yeah, that's lovely. Hey, listen, we need to take a little break, my dear. Let's take a little pause here. And then what I want to hear about is this has been so beautiful to hear about the life part of your life, but I also want you to share a little bit about the work part of your life. And here we are back again. Isn't that amazing? It takes one little guitar riff and we're in the commercial break. So this is like a little infomercial moment. And I know that you have a book that's like a workbook around creativity. Can you talk a little bit about that and share some more?
Well, I have a little handbook that I created as a gift for people, and it's geared towards leaders, for executives, leaders of teams, entrepreneurs. And it's a little handbook that gives you some quick tips about how to be creative, how to have a creative conversation. I've got some improv tips in there. I've got some problem solving tips. I've got some insights on your inner saboteurs, the saboteurs that block you from your inner knowing, from your creativity,
Right.
and how to deal with some of that.
How to
So
How to drop some of those stones. Yeah.
Yes, dropping those stones. Yeah, so they're quick tips, and actually it's an iteration of a little handbook that I created for an ad agency. There was Now I can't think of the name of the company.
Well, listen,
Uh,
I can run a few companies you've worked with. I know some of them: Intel, Cisco, United Nations, for crying out loud,
yeah,
Royal
for
Bank of
crying
Canada,
out loud.
for crying out loud.
It was Hewlett Packard.
Yeah.
And so they hired the advertising agency to create these little handbooks for them. So they tapped on my shoulder and they paid for me to write this handbook. And it was for entrepreneurs and in small business. And the agency was fantastic to work with. I mean, they really had me think about everything, and in terms of how I was writing and what I was writing. And so then I took that and I just elaborated on it and made it for leaders. And I thought, okay, I'll give it away. But I also have another book, which is Orchestrating Collaboration at Work, as you mentioned earlier.
Yes, and
And
I've
that's
seen
available
that.
on Amazon.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's for people who are trainers, coaches, facilitators who want to use the arts to create transformative experiences and improve teamwork. Also, learn about collaborative leadership. So they're all catalysts for leadership, teamwork, and creativity.
Well, I love what you do. I mean, of course, you and I met when I was doing theater stuff with these leaders, and you were doing visual arts. But it was fascinating to watch the kinds of activities that can come out of visual artwork, where people are actually quietly working on something, and then have to maybe move along and let go and let somebody else pick up the thread. That collaboration piece can be really powerful. I loved watching you do it. Well, listen, let me plug your website here, www.creativityatwork.com/handbook. Does that get people a free copy of that handbook?
Yes, it does.
A gift. That's very kind of you. Thank you, Linda. Let's get back. I'm desperate to hear a true story from your own life stimulated by that column.
Yeah. Well, when I read your column, what struck me was 40 and milestones, not so much about body. I don't even remember what I thought about my body at 40. But I remember that it was a milestone, and I was giving workshops in creativity back then, and one of my students said when I turned 40, now you can be a leader. Or no, sorry. She said, now you can be a teacher. Now you can teach. And that struck me. And there was something about her saying that just caused me to have agency with myself.
Say more about that.
To be sovereign.
Yeah.
You know, to connect with inner knowing, my inner wisdom, have trust in that.
Yeah.
And not be beholden to the outside world and what others think. I mean, I still do worry about that. But, and when I turned 40,
it dissipates, doesn't it, as we get older?
It does.
It's less and less about what other people think and more about what you know. Especially
when you're 70.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with every 10 years, it's like every milestone is like more shedding of all this extraneous stuff and more coming into your true self. And yeah, so I thought about milestones when I turned 40, and I asked a First Nations healer, teacher, leader to conduct a medicine wheel ceremony for me for my birthday. And
how wonderful.
And so invited a few close friends, and interestingly, I gave some of them the wrong address, so they didn't even show up. And I was glad that there were only a few people, because this was not a party and it was very emotional. And what he had me do was form the medicine wheel by dropping a stone. I had to tell a story of my life in 5-year increments and drop a stone for each 5 years. And then that helped form the wheel.
Circle. Wow.
And I think he had already created the circle, but it's the spokes within.
Yeah.
So it's the wheel is in First Nations is divided in 4. And so that represents 4 stages of life. And so heading into midlife. And then he had me get into the emotions and release emotions. So I was glad that, I didn't have a big crowd there. And that was really profound. And then shortly after, he invited me to a sweat lodge. And that's the only time I've been in a sweat lodge, where they heat up stones outside and they say, okay, welcome, grandmother. And they believe that the stones have all this knowledge, all this ancient wisdom, and bringing that into the tent. And we're in a circle, and then there's an opportunity to share in the circle, and then you're in the heat for hours. Mercifully, he didn't make it hellishly hot. And I tell you, after I came out of that and we were at a farm, life felt so good. Yeah, well, 40 is a milestone. And so that's why I was thinking of milestone birthdays. And then I thought of not just my own milestone, but a friend's who he is actually a cultural ambassador for Slovenia and a concert violinist. His name's Miha Pagachnik. And he told the story that when he turned 40, he celebrated his 40th birthday by playing his violin in 40 cathedrals in Europe in 40 days.
Wow.
Every day for 40 days.
That's a rambling man. I mean, he talk about on the road again.
Talk
Golly.
about energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the other thing I was thinking about, having read your column and listened to it, is that, when I'm such and such an age, I'm going to do this. And or I'm going to learn this. And you were talking about old technology and this and that. And I thought, well, that is kind of amusing, because now we have to learn something every day. Yeah. The technology is changing so quickly. It's like, even I feel like I'm behind every day, because and now with AI coming about, it's just mind-boggling.
It's at the speed of light. It is at the speed of light. Yeah. And do you know something that comes up for me? I'm glad you mentioned that. When I get to be this age, I'm going to do that. If it feels important, do it now. Because I have friends who have not had the privilege of growing old. And, I think sometimes, well, I can't speak for anybody else, but I take for granted that because my parents lived to be very old people, that I'm going to have forever to read those books or call those people or do this thing or learn how to do that, or no. I think it's really important. It takes me back to this column, because I had a friend who got a diagnosis, and it meant she was going to have some pretty radical surgery. And she got in touch with a photographer and said, I want some nudes done.
Wow.
I want pictures of my body as it looks now, because it's not going to look like this later. And I thought that was amazing. You evoked something else for me when you said that, you want to do it now. And I agree with that. If there's something that you want to do it now. But on the other hand, I love the value of a goal, like
5 years ago, I had this big goal to walk the Camino, 120 kilometers. So for 5 years, it gave me something to think about and really pay attention to my fitness and my health and everything so that I could enjoy that walk. And people were saying, well, why don't you, like 5 years ago, they said, why don't you walk the Camino now? No, I want it to be a goal for a milestone. So it's both and. Yes, if you want to paint or get into theater or read books or go to school, yeah, do it now. But also have goals that you can aspire to. And so we decided, actually, the day when we had our celebratory lunch on the last day of the Camino, we were just exhausted, but happy we finished. And I asked, so would you want to walk the Camino again? Everybody said no, done it. I'm good. And then 4 weeks later, I'm thinking because the Camino doesn't end when you finish the walk. There's a lot of processing that goes on after, reflecting, and I'm still processing it. And when I go to sleep at night, I'm still walking it. Like, it's really funny. And so now that we've been reflecting, now we've said, yeah, we do. So we've decided we're going to walk it in 5 years. So I'll be 75, my friend will be 70, and the others will be a bit younger.
That's great. And I think, to take your point about balancing this thing of having a goal and something that you're working towards and not putting off until you've popped your clogs to do something that you wished you had done before you couldn't do it anymore. I think it's about enjoying. I mean, again, it's all about being present and doing and being thoughtful about what you're doing.
Exactly.
And I think that the preparation for a long-term goal can be part of that process, that every day you're grabbing a hold of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And every day on the walk, that's what I focused on, being totally present. And also like present to the bird singing, the wind in the leaves in the forest, the smell of eucalyptus, the smell of pine, the jasmine when we passed by people's gardens, the crowing of the roosters, the light on the vineyards, the food, the ground we were walking on, and the history of it. And I try to tune into the energy of all these pilgrims who came before us for the last 1,000 years. And what were they thinking? What were they feeling? What is there to learn from this? That was my focus.
And, it's an interesting thing to take something that has become or has sustained itself as a pilgrimage site and recognize that people take pilgrimages for very, very different reasons today.
Yes.
Right?
Everybody has their own Camino.
Right. Yeah. Well, listen, I think that's a beautiful way for us to end. And thank you for sharing that fabulous personal story about your 40th. That was beautiful to hear and really painted a wonderful picture of a personal experience. So listen, thank you, Linda Naiman. Once again, the website, www.creativityatwork.com/handbook. Get a free handbook on creativity, innovation, stimulate your thinking, and drop a few of those rocks that are getting in your way. And let me say this, breathe all the time. Do come up slowly. And look, if you have some pebbles in your shoe that are making it hard for you to move to the next step, that you're worried about what's going to be painful next, keep walking, because what if it's good?
Or take that pebble out of your shoe.
Yeah, do that first.